Today we're talking about this one, Book 30, The Reunion. Another Maoco book and the last one of Cycle 6. So, let's get started with this one. First chapter. Maoco has quite a touching chapter about how, it's basically just setting the scene about how he's missing his mother. He's seeing his mother, thinking about her, and thinking, is she truly gone? Because the last time we saw Maoco's mother was in Book 15, The Escape, where you had the Lyran thing going on and the sharks, and Visser One had this underwater laboratory, essentially. And she was underwater, unconscious. Last he saw, a Lyran was going towards her. So that's setting the scene for the rest of this book. What happens next is Maoco is supposed to be going to school, but he decides to go to town. Why? It's not really properly explained, but it's not that relevant. He sees his mother walking down the street. Now, he instantly recognises her. What happened was, he gets knocked over. He's standing in the street, knocked over in the rush hour, of course. And then he goes ahead and thinks, right, I'm going to trip this woman up for doing that. I'm going to cause this woman bodily harm and technically assault. I'm going to trip her up as revenge for her clumsiness and, well, rudeness, really. So he goes ahead and catches a glimpse of this woman, and he immediately recognises her as his mother, despite the fact that she's wearing a curly blonde-haired wig, eye contact, and big square sunglasses. Which, I mean, you do know your parents' faces pretty damn well. It's one of the first things you see when you grow up. So it's understandable that he would recognise her. I imagine it must have taken him a second or so. But yeah, recognises her. And she goes into this building, one of the taller buildings in town. And Maoco decides, right, I have to follow her. And he does. Goes in. There's a lot of security in this building, though. So Maoco has to come up with a plan. This is where Cassie would throw a fit, but then do it herself. Such is Cassie. He thinks, okay, I need to get past security. There's an ID check thing. So he walks up to some guy that walks in, some old guy, and acquires him. And while he's acquiring this guy, he's leading him through security. The guy's... And he gets through security and goes to the elevator where Visser One, Maoco's mother, is going on to. Funny thing about this guy that Maoco has acquired, his name is Mr. Grant. Now, he's not given a very flattering description. I think maybe this is like an inside joke between... Because this is a ghost-written book, by the way. I forgot to mention it's ghost-written by Elise Donner. So this is Elise Donner's first ghost-written book. It must have been like a little joke between the authors and her. Oh, I'm going to make this guy Mr. Grant as almost like a stand-in for Michael Grant, of course, one of the co-authors. I don't think it's going to be a coincidence. That sounds like it's something done deliberately, but he's described as this frumpy old guy. It's probably just a little joke that they had going on there, but I reckon the authors had a bit of a laugh at that. So Maoco goes into this elevator, and it's full of these people, these suits, going to work. And he's thinking about what he has to do. He sees his mother, Visser One, at the opposite side of the elevator, opposite corner to him. And this is where Maoco... He does something very, very silly. He grabs a paper and morphs fly in the middle of a busy elevator. Elevator, you know, there to there. Pretty small space. People everywhere. People might occasionally look around. There's the chance of that happening. Maybe it's a low chance, but maybe it can happen. Especially when you get the sounds of... That is apparently supposed to happen when you morph. But apparently nobody sees until the very end, when the woman who's next to him looks down and sees a strange rat-sized human half-fly thing. And she raises the alarm. But of course, Visser One, who's also in this elevator, doesn't notice this or doesn't care that this woman is saying, I just saw a human-sized rat on the floor. You'd think that Visser One would say, just to make sure that she's... But no, she just walks on out. And Maoco, having morphed the fly, goes onto her briefcase that she's got and follows her around and finds out which room she goes into. Once inside the room, he flies up, gets swiped at, but finds a ventilation shaft at the top of the room and goes out. Kicks in one of the... He has to demorph because the air suction is throwing him forward, so he demorphs. And once he's fully demorphed, he hasn't got much space, but he kicks open a vent after moving down a bit, drops in, and then is in this empty office with the lights turned off. And he goes to the end of the office after somebody's heard coming in, calling for Mr. Grant, Mr. Grant. So he morphs Grant in the back and proceeds to escape as Mr. Grant, after, of course, bumping into the real Mr. Grant in the hallway, who falls unconscious, and Maoco pulls him into a broom closet and steals his clothes and walks out. And that's a summary of the first part of this book. Maoco is supposed to be the cold calculating one. This goes out of the window here. He takes so many risks that could have easily ended the Animorphs as a group. Easily. But I do think it's more in character of him to acquire Mr. Grant and then morph him and then steal his clothes. Because as we'll find out in this book, Maoco looks at things very differently than to Cassie. One of the things that's very prevalent in this book, and I believe deliberately so, is a variation on the whole, the end justifies the means. Or the ends justify the means. That's sort of what's happened here. He sees Visser One, and he does whatever he can to make sure he follows her and finds out where she's going, regardless of the damage he could potentially do to his cause. Now, this is strange, really, with Maoco, because he is supposed to be the logical one, the one that would step back and say, that's a stupid idea, we should avoid doing that. But now we're getting the Maoco who doesn't care what's in the middle. He just sees point A and point B and makes a straight line between that. And he talks about it in that sort of way throughout this book. Is that really Maoco's character? It's more of a Rachel thing. Although her path is usually hit things until we get to point B rather than just find the straight path. It sort of fits Maoco's character, and I can see how he's reached this sort of mindset. And being cold and calculated as Maoco is, it's understandable that he would think, screw whatever in the middle of A and B. I'm going to go from A and I'm going to go to B. Like in the last book, Elfangor's Secret, where all the Animorphs are arguing about what do we do with Visser 4. We've got this Yerk, Visser 4. Is he going to die of starvation? We can't just let him go. And Maoco just picks him up, chucks him in the fire. Point A to point B. Don't care about the emotion in between. So it is part of Maoco's development, and I think it's handled very well in this book. The Animorphs gather after learning about Visser One. And Jake decides that we do this tonight. We need to find out exactly what's going on tonight. So he steps back and says, I'm busy. Cassie says she's busy, and Rachel says she's busy. So it's down to Maoco, Tobias, and Axe. Why Jake decided that we have to do it tonight when 3 of us are out of action, especially me, the leader, is a strange decision. And we've seen how the Animorphs act when Jake isn't around. Not great. It tends to fall apart, especially in the last book, Elfangor's Secret, where we got a whole chunk of the book without Jake there, and it was... The Animorphs were shit without Jake. So it's a bad decision by Jake. There's no reason to believe that they have to rush this tonight with 3 of them out of action. They've got no reason to do that, because they know which building she goes in. They know which room she goes in, so there's a good chance that she will go there again. A good chance. The Animorphs discuss the fact that this is Maoco's mother, and Cassie is the one to speak up and say, this is your mother. Because They were talking about what had to happen to Visser One. Now, they came to an implied conclusion that she would have to be destroyed in some manner. So Cassie's like, this is Maoco's mother we're talking about. We shouldn't be doing this. And I love this chapter. I absolutely love this chapter for these interactions, because as soon as Cassie says that, they all just ignore her. At first they just say, Jake says, now's not the time, Cassie. Shrugs her off and continues the conversation. A brutal put down of Cassie's point of view. But that's where the Animorphs are coming to, and Cassie is still on this path of moralistic stuff and, you know, taking that into consideration. But the other Animorphs are thinking, this is too big. We need to go down the route of what best suits the mission. Jake is a bit unsure about Maoco going on this task because, of course, it is his mother, and Jake knows that something could go wrong because of that. He puts Tobias in charge, which it shows that there is a pecking order, pun intended, in the Animorphs. So he definitely chooses Tobias over, say, Axe. So trusts Tobias more with leading the group than he does Axe, which is understandable in a way, not very understandable in other ways, but Jake's word is law. And then the end of this chapter, page 33, is awesome. I'll read it to you. Jake has pulled Maoco aside. I noticed a certain lack of details about what happened today, Jake said, which tells me you did things that I probably don't want to hear about. Yeah, you probably don't. I tried out a devil-may-care grin, not a big success. Jake folded his arms over his chest and looked down at the ground in silence, then up at me. Jake has changed a lot over the months we've been fighting this little war. The look he gave me did not come from my boy Jake, my bud, my pal. It came from a battle commander. Freaky seeing how old Jake has got. Maoco, you're my best friend, but if you ever go off like that again, you and I will have serious problems. In the old days, I'd have said, bite me, or something equally brilliant. Now I said, okay, understood. It was all I could do to stop myself from saying, yes, sir. I absolutely love this little interaction at the end, at page 33. Just beautiful. It just shows how far the Animorphs have come. How these two were best mates and they laughed and joked together, but once it got down to business, Jake just stepped back into this position of authority and discarded these relationships. That didn't matter. The mission mattered. Him being the leader mattered. And Maoco understands that now. And he doesn't question it. He goes with it. Brilliant. Thank you, book, for that little scene. That was awesome. That's one of my favourite parts of this cycle, definitely. Whether it's my favourite part, there's a few contenders in this cycle, but we'll get to that in my cycle review. Maoco, Axe, and Tobias go to this building at the dead of night. They just assume that Visser One is there. Turns out she is, which is lucky. I mean, they've done no reconnaissance on when she's supposed to be in this building. They just have a lucky guess. So they go in, morph cockroach on the top of the building, go in through a crappy door and slide down the staircase. Fun little scene. And then they manage to get into Visser One's office. And when they demorph, Axe demorphs first, just in case, they demorph and they see Visser One. Turns out there is a yerk pool in her room, like one of those little portable yerk pools. This briefcase is some sort of Candrona projection thing. And Maoco's mother is head down, ear against the yerk pool water, strapped in. And luckily for them, she's looking the other way. And Maoco he's torn here. He's torn. He sees his mother, sees that she's free, and he has this urge to rescue her. But Tobias and Axe are there to say, Maoco, stop. Don't do anything stupid. We're not going to let you. Here's a weird part. It's chapter 10, page 49. Maoco, Tobias snapped. A second step, a third. Axe! Suddenly there was an ant-like blade at my throat. I stopped. See what I mean about Axe and Tobias keeping him in control? Brutal, but necessary. Another great interaction in this book. No, Maoco, Axe said coldly, or calmly. Visser One will be back in your mother's head the second she senses any danger, and you could not open those locks with force. How does he know that? no, it's acts, I suppose. They are no doubt controlled by a brain-wave interface, so that the Yeerk can maintain control even outside your mother's body. A brain-wave interface? We've never seen that before. How does Axe know these random things? A brainwave interface. So the Yeerk can control instruments that are outside the pool by brainwave. Seems awfully convenient to the plot. I don't know about you, but that's how I feel. Brainwave interface. What the frick? Anyway, so they're in this room and they're having a look around. Aside from the pool and the portable Kandrona briefcase thing, there's a big surveillance desk. And Maoco notices what's on the surveillance screen. Hawk-Bajir. Free Hawk-Bajir. And it's a bird's eye view of the Hawk-Bajir. Now you might be wondering, why are you pointing out that it's a bird's eye view, Adam? What's that detail got to do with anything? Quite a bit, actually, as we'll find out later on. But yeah, let's just leave it at that for now. It's looking down on the free Hawk-Bajir running around doing their Hawk-Bajir thing. The Yeerk goes back into Maoco's mother's body. But suddenly, there's a bang at the door. Bang, bang, bang. So the animals think, shit, gotta get away, and go into the ensuite toiletry facilities. And there they begin to morph. There's or Dracon beam fire outside. Turns out a bunch of Hawk-Bajir have stormed into the room and are trying to attack Visser One, but she's holding them back. He's shooting at them. So the Animorphs intervene and there's a big brawl in a very small space. The Animorphs get the upper hand because the Hawk-Bajir obviously didn't expect a gorilla, a hawk and an andalite in there, so they back off and run away. Now, I do wonder where... Firstly, it's great timing for the plot. Secondly, where did they come from and where did they go? Where did they come from, Cut and Eye Joe? I believe that's the lyric. They just disappear. Just go. It's like they're just a group of lads out on a bender and they stumble into this office like, oh shit, we're being attacked. Leg it, lads. Back down to the pub. Because there's no other Yeerks around, and as we'll find out later on, the Yeerks start arriving in helicopters after the Animorphs are leaving, so... Were these just Hawk-Bajir lads out on a lash? Maybe. Are they Visser One's Hawk-Bajir? Why she would have them attack her like that? Maybe, I mean, it makes more sense, actually, because there might be sensors in the room that there's some weird life form coming in. Visser One, very important, still has a loyal following, even though she's currently pretending she's on her own. We know that the Yeerks have the sort of technology that will detect foreign life forms, so maybe these were detected and her Hawk-Bajir in another room were alerted. And they came in and she started firing at them, pretending that they were supposed to come in and make it seem as if she was on her own under attack. It's possible. It is possible. Because they bugger off and then Visser Three's forces come later on. But it would give the appearance to the Animorphs that Visser One is being hunted and she's on her own. That's the impression she's putting across here. Maybe it's deliberate. Have a think about it. So the Animorphs take her, not so much hostage, sort of hostage. They take Visser One and they start to threaten her. So Axe puts on the act. By the way, they're all putting on this act of being arrogant andalites, which is a great little detail going on in here. They hold her down and say, right, why don't we just kill you now, etc., etc. Visser One's like, no, don't kill me now. But page 59. I won't be alive for long, she said, suddenly weary. Visser 3 had accused me of treason. Now, once his Hawk-Bajir report, he'll have the proof he can take to the Council of 13. They've issued a gashad. Sounds an awful lot like jihad, doesn't it? A warrant to kill me on sight. Now, forgive me, Elise Donner. But those are two contradictory points there, aren't they? Once his Hawk-Bajir will report, he'll have the proof he can take to the Council of 13. Implying that they currently don't have the proof that she's treasonous. And then the very next sentence, they've issued a gashad, a warrant to kill me on sight. So they already know that she's treasonous, but they need evidence that she's treasonous, even though they've already issued the Gashad to kill her on sight. What? That makes no sense. It makes no sense. If they've issued the Gashad to kill her on sight, then they know she's treasonous. Why would the Visser need to gather evidence of her being treasonous to Council of 13 to accuse her of treason when she's already been charged with treason? What? Unless, again, those Hork-Bajir that came in were Visser Ones and she's trying to put across that message of I am screwed. It still doesn't make sense. At least, Donna, what are you doing? Oh, I'm on death row for murder, so they're going to kill me in a week. Oh no, somebody's just found evidence that I killed somebody. I have to stop them. What? You're already on death row? So they decide to make a deal with Visser One. And the deal is this. If they give her the location of the Hork-Bajir colony, the free Hork-Bajir that she's got surveillance of, she will give them Visser 3. And Maoco steps in immediately, even though Tobias was put in charge. He says, Axe, make the deal. Say, yes, we agree to it. And Tobias is like, what are you doing? Why are you just going to give away the free Hork-Bajir? Why are you agreeing to this? And Maoco just says, just trust me. Just trust me on this one. So Axe says, yes, of course. We don't give a shit about the Hork-Bajir because I'm arrogant and light. And they don't ask how she plans to give them Visser 3. All right, we'll trade you the Hork-Bajir for Visser 3. We're not going to ask you how you're going to uphold your part of the deal. We'll just trust you, person we don't trust. And they just go. That's that scene. It's like, we make this deal. How are we going to go about doing it? Who gives a shit? We'll just make the deal. And then they fly off. And that's when we see Visser 3's four helicopters, I believe. 4 helicopters flying in. Which, again, it doesn't make sense. It makes the original group of Hork-Bajir look like they were just, I don't know, just hanging around. And Tobias is very much irked, partly because, I believe, Maoco took control and ordered Axe what to say, even though Tobias was given leadership of this. But not only that, he believes that Maoco has just betrayed the free Hork-Bajir. And did he? Did he betray the free Hork-Bajir? He talks as if he has a plan, but he doesn't go into detail about the plan. And as the scene was progressing, so Visser One says, I'll trade you Visser 3 for the Hork-Bajir. Maoco immediately says, say yes. Without any... if he come up with a plan that would involve the free Hork-Bajir, but also would keep them safe, you'd take like more than 5 seconds to come up with an idea. Instead, he just blurts out, yes, do it. It's almost as if he thought, there might be a way out of this situation, but I'm willing to make this call now in order for us to appear confident. It's the main message of the book. The end justifies the means. What I imagine was going through Maoco's head was, this is a prime opportunity to get Visser 1 and Visser 3 together so we can take them out. He doesn't care what their side of the bargain is. He doesn't think about the free Hork-Bajir. He thinks what's more important is Visser 1 and Visser 3 being there. Agree to that deal. We'll come up with the plan later. So I think in a way Tobias was justified in thinking that Maoco had betrayed the Hork-Bajir, because I don't for a second believe he'd thought of the plan by that point. I believe on that flyover, he sort of runs it through his head and he comes up with a plan on the way over there. Because he can't do it in that split second when Axe is talking to Visser 1. So yeah, Tobias, you're a bit right to be irked there. Maoco is doing his point A to point B thing, where he doesn't care about what happens in the middle, as long as he gets there. And this isn't just me speculating. As they're leaving, Maoco goes through a bit of an inner monologue, and he says this. I knew Tobias and Axe were doubtful. I knew they didn't entirely trust me. They thought I was playing a double game, but they were wrong. I had seen the way to destroy both Vissers. I had seen it in all its perfection. That's his point B. That's his goal. People don't understand the word ruthless. They think it means mean. It's not about being mean. It's about seeing the bright, clear line that leads from A to B. The line that goes from motive to means, beginning to end. It's about seeing that bright, clear line and not caring about anything but the beautiful fact that you can see the solution. Not caring about anything else but the perfection of it. That's what happened. I saw the way to take both Vissers down, and that's all that mattered. But I wasn't going to explain all that. Other people's pity just messes with the straight line. Other people's pity makes you think things you can't think about when you're seeing the line. So that's basically Maoco saying, I didn't care what we were sacrificing. I saw the way to get both Vissers together so we could destroy them. He didn't have a plan to save the Hork-Bajir. He made that deal without a way to save them. Cold, ruthless Maoco. And it's a very interesting concept, the end justifies the means thing. And I believe an inherently evil mindset. If you go back to mid-20th century, a lot of the most evil dictators that there were, Chairman Mao, Joseph Stalin, they operated under the mindset of the end justifies the means. And they say that themselves, these communist dictators. They wanted a utopia. That's the end goal for them. And they operated on point A to point B, don't give a shit about what happens in the middle. And under someone like Chairman Mao, millions and millions starved to death because he had this straight line from A to B and didn't care what happened to them in the middle. It doesn't matter how many people died, he would get his way. That is this mindset. It is a very evil mindset, no matter what way you do it, okay? So put it this way. I want to give money to charity. I'm going to give £50 to charity. That's my goal, okay? The end justifies the means. What are my means? I'm going to mug an old lady and steal 50 quid off her and give it to charity. Is it a moral act anymore? The end result is seen as moral, but the means to get there sort of takes away from that moral bit at the end. This is a dark side of Maoco, and we've seen dark side of Maoco before. I think it was book 10, where he just had this hate growing within him. Maoco is, I'm not going to call him like a young dictator, because I believe to be one of these evil dictators, you also need to have certain elements of you need to have psychopathic tendencies, essentially. And Maoco doesn't fit that bill. So he's not going to grow up to be bloody Chairman Mao. But this is a mindset that is, I believe, detrimental. But thankfully, as this book progresses, I believe that comes down. So let's carry on. Tobias has been really snappy with Maoco on the way back, and that continues for quite a way into this book now. Tobias is really annoyed at Maoco, and it's an interesting interaction going on between those two. They go to find Cassie because Maoco has come up with this plan on the way home and asks her for a morph that'll be able to get out of the mountains and also be quite bulky. And she suggests a mountain goat. And on page 73 to 74, there's a big conversation between these four Animorphs. And it's a mess. Not in terms of writing, but in terms of how the characters are talking to each other. There's no logical flow to what they're saying to each other. They're snapping at each other. Some people are saying all these weird things to each other. And by the way, before you think, I'm not dissing on the writing. I'm looking at the characters, how they're interacting in the absence of Jake. When they're talking to each other, these four, in this panic situation, they're talking in a very panicked way, and they're like, oh, fuck, what's going on? You're an idiot. Stop talking at me like that. You know, I'm going to go do this thing. I don't care what you think. That sort of talk between the animals does not happen when Jake's around. Once again, putting into perspective how important Jake is to this group, because they fall apart when he's not there. They really do. So anyway, they come up with a plan, and they're going to intercept Visser One, and they're going to lead her to the mountains. So they find her as she comes to a stop somewhere after driving her car. She's got an Audi TT, by the way, I believe. Was it Audi TT? It was an Audi. Were TTs around? Oh, whatever. They find her and they tell her to go to the mall. So they follow her as birds to the mall. And they tell her to buy certain types of clothing. And they're also warning her, falsely, that there are Yeerks following her. She gets stopped in a shop as she's trying to escape by a security guard. And Maoco is nearby. And he starts saying to her, I've got a Dracon beam in my pocket, and if you start anything, I'll pull it out on you. And I'm thinking, so Maoco's overhearing this in what is probably a busy mall. This security guard must be like, I have a Dracon beam. Maoco does say he's close, but I don't think he's going to be that close. He's not going to be like stood next to him. Like No. So this Yeerk security guard is probably not doing his job very well. But anyway, Rachel helps by jumping in, and end result is she walks out, gets into a car, and the Animorphs somehow, I don't know how, they are cockroaches in her car, which must have meant that they morphed cockroach somewhere and crawled onto her. How? It's never explained. I'm imagining. No, how? I don't know. They just end up in the car as cockroaches. It's not explained. Now at this stage, they're still talking to her as if they were Andalites. And I just want to take a moment to mention this bit. And I found it quite funny, actually. Throughout this book, they're talking as arrogant Andalites. And they even say, we need to pretend that we're arrogant Andalites that talk like we're better than everyone else. And you got to remember that the only Andalite they've really been in that much contact with at all is Axe. And Axe is just sitting there listening to this. It's almost like they're just talking about his character in front of him. And at one point he says, I'm very close to being offended, you know. And poor Axe. They're just like, right, we know what Andalites act like. They act like dicks. They act like arrogant twats who don't care about other races. And you just like, is that me? Am I really? I thought I was humble. You know? Poor Axe. She found out that they were more than likely humans. How did they find this out? They were talking to Visser One and saying something about how they wouldn't kill, or human controllers would die or whatever, or how they were easy to kill. Yeah, that was it. So they said human controllers are easy to kill. And she says, but there have been basically no human casualties. And yet there's been loads of Hork-Bajir and Taxxon casualties. And the Animorphs are like, oh shit, she's onto us, because we would spare human life. But human controllers have died. Remember book 10, there were about, 12 human controllers that Eric went in and massacred? You've also got the policeman in book 1, who we can assume is dead. You've got that guy in the banquet hall in book 20, who the Animorphs say they didn't inject him with enough venom to kill him, but in all... according to science, that guy's also dead. So there have been human casualties. There have been a few. There might even be some elsewhere that we haven't heard of. But they do spare Hork-Bajir as well. They don't spare Taxxons, but they can't help that, because as soon as you touch one, they explode. But they do spare Hork-Bajir quite a lot as well. Granted, they are more ruthless, probably because the Hork-Bajir are more dangerous, and that's what they should have said to Visser One. Yeah, there are more Hork-Bajir casualties because they're more dangerous in their natural state. Disarm a human with his gun, and what's he going to do? Slap you? Nothing. Yeah. That's what they should have said, but no, they freeze, and she knows. She knows. Which could well be very important in the future. There's also another line she says while she's in the car, which we've got to get to. Remember when we were in Visser One's room, and he looked at... Maoco saw the surveillance of the Hork-Bajir from above. Jump forward to page 101. You would not find it from the air. It is in a narrow, hidden valley high in the mountains. Trees would block a simple human helicopter. You would not find it from the air. Okay, so when we saw the surveillance footage, where the Hork-Bajir were being looked at from the air... I'm coming to some conclusions about at least Donna's writing. And we will discuss that more at the end. They're in this car and they travel up to the mountains, and she goes to a big car parking area. Apparently Axe has gone ahead and has warned campers to leave the area, leave the trail. They've gone for a relatively unused trail, so their idea is to lead her up there. Now, this is one of the most crucial parts of the book, in my opinion, when it comes to the message anyway. A park ranger is killed. So, leading up to this, Visser One comes out of the car and rushes off. Rachel and Tobias have gone. Rachel flew away. Tobias has already gone. And Maoco has just finished morphing the Osprey, and he flies out the car. Visser 3 has just turned up in his limousine, because he loves his limousine. And as soon as he gets out the car, having morphed before Jake and Cassie, bang! The Audi blows up. Drake on fire. The thing flips in the air, bursts into flames, and terror. So Maoco is certain that Jake and Cassie have been killed, which only makes sense because they hadn't morphed yet. They were just sat in the car. But of course, this is Animorphs, and they're still alive. There's a shitty explanation at the end. We'll just get to that later, I suppose. No, we'll get to it now. They come back later in the story, and their excuse is, oh, we saw the Visser was there, so we morphed back into cockroach, and we managed to survive this big explosion because we're cockroaches, and cockroaches are indestructible. And it's like, oh, what? You did not have time. There's like 10 seconds. Honestly, that's just... Yeah, I didn't like that bit. But what happens then? This is the crucial part of the book when it comes to the message to me. A ranger comes out to see what's going on. Just a random ranger. Maoco's watching this going on. Visser 3 does that. One of the controllers. Park ranger, dead. Dead. Gone. Now, what we have to consider here is how this ranger came to meet his demise. This happened because of Maoco's plan. Maoco's plan caused the death of this innocent ranger. And Maoco has just witnessed this. Now, he doesn't dwell on it for too long. At least it's not written down. But you know for certain that this is one of those moments that is going to stick with him. He has essentially just killed an innocent person for his plan. And this is explained... if you go back to the A to B thing, he talks several times about he sees the clear line from A to B. And as soon as this happens, he says, I don't see the line anymore. All I see is flames. That is, it's really well done. Really well done, because it shows Maoco that his mindset of A to B can suddenly just burst into flames. He's just seen the consequence, or one of the consequences that can come from his cold, ruthless decisions. And because of that, I believe this will be a change of mindset for Maoco. He's realised the damage that this mindset of the end justifies the means can have. This guy's just died. Why? Maoco's plan. Maoco's plan that he rushed, that he snapped to a decision on no more than a day ago. And now this guy's dead. Dead. Innocent guy. And it's tragic. I mean, we've got loads of death in Animorphs. I mean, you've got innocent people dying. You've got other humans dying, like the policeman in book 1, like the human controllers in book 10, and the Hork-Bajir as well, because every time they kill a Hork-Bajir controller, of course, an innocent Hork-Bajir is dying. And that's tragic. But that's also in the midst of a battle where you expect this sort of thing to happen. This ranger is just on his job. He's just on the mountainside doing his job. Tiddly diddly dee, I'm earning myself a wage here. And bang, gone. Just random guy. That's gonna have an effect on Maoco. He might not say it much in this book, but that has put his whole mindset of A to B into flames. Good stuff. I like it, at least on her. Visser One is travelling up the mountain, and she comes across Rachel and Tobias in Hork-Bajir bodies. Now, I found it strange because Visser One instantly recognises one of these Hork-Bajir as Masker Fetan, it just instantly recognises, oh, how are you, Masker Fatan? How have you been lately? How are the kids? Good. Just graduated. But Rachel, she already has a Hawk-Bajir body, and that is Jarahami, and Tobias has Ket Helpak. Why they've acquired a new Hawk-Bajir? Why? Why would they need to? I don't think it makes a difference, but they've done it anyway. They've acquired Masker Fatan, who's obviously one of the 3 Hawk-Bajir who hangs around in the colony, who must have been one of Visser One's Hawk-Bajir. Hence why Visser One would remember said Hawk-Bajir. But that's that. And she goes with those 2 Hawk-Bajir up to this mountain. And the other animals are flying around. Maoco's seeing all these Yeerk forces encroaching. He sees Visser 3 morphing into this weird chameleon-like insect alien thing and starts coming up. So there's a chase going on up the mountain. Maoco morphs the mountain goat that he acquired earlier from the gardens. I didn't really go into that, but that's what happened. There's not much else to it. And he goes up ahead so that when Visser One eventually comes up to the point where they want to get to, he's there. And she looks around and says, where are the Hawk-Bajir? Turns out what the animals have done is they've gotten Eric to come along. Yes, Eric again. And he has created a hologram, essentially, that is currently looking like a slope of the mountain. But on cue, that disappears. And what appears there is this Hawk-Bajir colony, and all these Hawk-Bajir are just doing their Hawk-Bajir thing. But what happens around this point is Maoco is talking to Visser One, and he references the Prince of Egypt. What a fucking... Maoco, what you do? And that's obviously... that Maoco's mother, Visser One, who, by the way, is now a sub-Visser. We don't know what number, but referring to Visser One is easy enough. She recognises his voice. She knows definitely now that they're human, but she thinks she recognises that voice. She recognises Maoco's voice. Do you see how quickly things fall apart without Jake around? He's still dead, apparently. And it just falls apart because Maoco can't control himself. What happens then? Visser 3 shows up, and all these forces appear in the sky. Visser One says, aha, I had you fooled. I do have loyal followers. I'm not on my own. And this Empire ship, the Nova ship or something like that, I'm sure that's a reference to something, appears in the sky. Visser 3's bug fighters come in, and they're all kicking off in the sky. Visser 3 comes up. Visser One gets a shot in. And then Visser One picks up a mobile phone, communications device, and says, kill them all, kill them all. And the ships fire down on this Hawk-Bajir colony, and Eric makes it seem as if they're all being killed and bursting into flames and what have you. And then the fight continues between the Visser One and Visser 3. There's a big crash because the Dracon beams from the ships are actually just hitting rock rather than any Hawk-Bajir, and it's causing the mountain to come apart and crack and what have you. And they separate. So Visser 1 and Maoco on one side, Visser 3 and the others on the other side. And Maoco is about to be shot by Visser 1. And at the very last second, just as Maoco charges in to stop her and to knock her off the side of the cliff, she recognises that it's him, it's Maoco, it's the boy, she calls him, the boy. So Visser 1 knows Maoco now is the one. But just as Maoco's about to knock her off the cliff to get from point A to point B to destroy the enemy despite what's going on in the middle, Jake comes out of nowhere and Deus Ex Machina's, whatever you pronounce it, whatever it is, and hits Maoco out of the way and stops him, holds him down. But Visser One falls, tumbles over the cliff and disappears from sight. And Maoco's crying, no, 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 no. The Animorphs then escape, and that's pretty much the end of the book. Rachel comes round to see Maoco later, who's grieving because he thinks he's lost his mother, but she says to him, look, I checked the area. There were no signs of her body. She might have escaped. and there's just that little bit of hope. And I think one of the things that really upsets Maoco here is that he wanted the closure of knowing whether his mother was dead or alive, and he's now back in limbo. We'll see how that story continues later on in the book series. Let's tackle some key points here, shall we? I really liked the characterization in this book. The interactions between the characters had some of the best moments, probably of the series. Some of the stuff with Jake, the interactions going on with them, great stuff. I really like that side of Elise Donner's writing. So she hits the nail on the head with that. But, and this is pretty similar to what happened in the last book, the plot is flimsy. And it's not just flimsy, it's shattered into a million pieces before it's really got going. And I'll explain why. You remember when Maoco and Visser One made the deal back in her office. What was the deal again? She wanted the location of the Free Hork-Bajir in exchange for giving them Visser 3. Okay, so that's the deal. And nobody asked how they did that deal. What then proceeded to happen was that the Animorphs made it so that Visser 3 would show up. What? She says, I'll give you Visser 3, but then the Animorphs proceed to put together the plan into place to get Visser 3. Maybe the part of the deal that she was going for was, I'll just be bait. Which isn't a great... Put it this way, the Animorphs could have just gone to Eric and said, right, can you disguise yourself as Visser One so that we can lure Visser 3 out? They could have just done that. Why did they need to offer up the Free Hork-Bajir colony? Which brings up another problem. Remember that the Free Hork-Bajir were on a surveillance screen. So, from the air, which according to Cassie later wasn't possible, Visser One can see the Hork-Bajir from the air, which means there's some sort of surveillance looking down at these Hork-Bajir that is connected to Visser One. So there's obviously a ship that's sending this information to Visser One, or she's intercepting it. So they know where the Hork-Bajir are. Why does she need to ask? She can see them. She's got a camera there looking down. All she has to do is phone someone up. That ship that I'm getting the information from, what are the coordinates? Okay, right, got you. Why? She knows where... Oh. The only way that this could make sense is that there's an outside source not connected to the Yeerks that is sending her this signal, or she's intercepting that signal. So, and in which case she wouldn't get the coordinates even though theoretically she could. So, somebody else is looking at the Hork-Bajir and she's intercepting that. Who else do we know? Who knows where the Hork-Bajir are? Right, the Elemist. Okay, he's probably not sending camera shots, so he's out. The Animorphs. Well, we know for a fact that they're not showing Visser One where the Free Hork-Bajir are. Who else knows about the Free Hork-Bajir? Oh yeah, the Chi. How much more evidence do I need that the Chi are playing some weird double-crossing game? If Visser One is in control of that camera looking down at those Hork-Bajir, or she's connected to the ships, even if it's not Visser One, even if it's another Yeerk vessel not connected to Visser One, maybe it's one of Visser 3's ships looking down at these Free Hork-Bajir, then they know where the Free Hork-Bajir are. The Yeerks know where the Free Hork-Bajir are. So that's game over for them. They should be gone by now. But no, they're not. So it can't be the Yeerks with the cameras on them. Who else knows where they are? The only group that knows where these Hork-Bajir are the Chi. Who else? How else could this possibly make sense? If this truly is a Yeerk surveillance looking down at these Hork-Bajir, then they know where the Hork-Bajir are. They know. Which means the end of the Free Hork-Bajir colony. It doesn't make sense. This plot does not make sense. Very much like the last book. Not Elfangel's Secret, but The Sickness, book 29. Where everything was nice and good about it, but as soon as you actually got into the details of the plot, it was just nothing. It's just a massive block of stupidity. And there's another point to it as well. They've got camera shot on the Hork-Bajir, which, according to the Ellimist, you can't really find it unless you really know where you're looking. You have to know exactly where you're looking to find these Hork-Bajir. And apparently they're just looking down on them. They can just see them. Whereas you shouldn't be able to do that. Are the Chi making a hologram of the three Hork-Bajir to trick Visser One? Or to trick the Animorphs, or to trick fucking everybody? Who knows? So many questions, but no real answers here. So let's go over the scores of this book. Jake's leadership. He wasn't very much in it again. The only thing that he really did was have that discussion with Maoco where he laid down the law, but that was basically it. He left the mission up to Maoco. He wasn't there for the first mission. He wasn't there for the second mission until the last minute where he jumped in Deus Ex Machina and Maoco. So I'm not going to score him. I don't think it's I can't justify a score for Jake on this book. Sorry, I can't. I mean, no, I can. The mere fact that he wasn't there for the first mission is a failing on his part. He did well with the Maoco stuff, but he's got to get a 3 because he wasn't there. And technically, as a leader, you need to be there. So I can justify a score on him. He gets a 3 out of 10. The book. Right, I'm in two minds of this because Elise Donner, the ghostwriter, great work with characters and interactions. Pretty shoddy work on the plot. So it's a mixed bag here. Some great moments in this book. Some really good moments. And characters' development through this. The straight line bursting into flames, that mindset of Maoco's being just melted away by seeing this ranger being shot down, this innocent ranger. I thought that stuff was absolutely delicious, but I cannot get over this inane plot that makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense, unless the only way it makes sense is if the Chi, once again, are double-crossing pieces of shit. That's the only way this can make sense, which is starting to make me think that it does make sense. Oh, so much of this, the score of this book comes down to whether it's true that the Chi are double-crossers or not. Because if they're not, which the book doesn't imply that they're not, I'm so confused. Do you know what? If we're going on the assumption that the Chi aren't being underhanded, as they so tend to be, it's got to get a relatively low score. If you just took all the plot stuff out of it, then it would probably be a 10 out of 10, but, you know, that's not how this works. It's a 7. It's a 7 out of 10, this book. Some brilliant moments, some really good moments that really elevate the book, and it flows nicely, it's got a nice pace, yada, yada, yada. But the plot just really lets it down. It's the same as the last book, really, but not quite as bad. And the good moments of this book were better than the good points of 29. So yeah, a couple of points above The Sickness, which I gave a 5 out of 10. This one is a 7 out of 10. And that includes a bit of leniency towards the idea that this was an underhanded Chi plot all along. Anyway, that's the review of this mixed bag book. Next one is number 31, The Conspiracy, which is another Jake-led book. My favourite character, at least up until this point in the book series. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Of course, now that we've finished this cycle, there will be a cycle review video. So look forward to that one. That's where I look at books 26 through to 30, including Megamorphs 3, and give my reviews on that series of books. If you like fan fiction, I write fan fiction, and I wrote this one. And there's a link to read that in the description below. I've also got the Animorphs Discord. I run that server, and that's linked in the description as well. So I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for watching this video. I shall see you next time. Ta-ra!